They say the forests of Canada are endless, a sea of trees stretching beyond the horizon, where silence reigns and winter can last half the year. Out there in the deep cold, survival is fragile, and when hunger gnaws at the belly long enough, something else awakens. Something ancient, something that waits for desperate men to falter. This is the legend of the Wendigo, a creature of hunger, a spirit of the frozen wild, and perhaps Canada's most terrifying legend. The story of the Wendigo comes from the First Nations peoples of North America, the Algonquin, Cree, Ojibwe, and Innu. To them, the Wendigo wasn't just a monster, it was a warning, a tale whispered by firelight on the coldest nights to remind their people of the dangers of greed, selfishness, and hunger. Descriptions vary across tribes, but the heart of the legend is always the same: a person who gives into cannibalism, who breaks the sacred taboo in times of famine, becomes cursed. Their body twists, their soul rots, and they are transformed into a Wendigo. In some stories, it is a towering giant, skeletal and emaciated, its ribs pressing against skin stretched too thin, the lips torn away by constant hunger, eyes glowing with a frozen fire. Every bite of flesh only makes it hungrier, its appetite never satisfied. In others, the Wendigo is a spirit, a shadow of the forest itself. It can slip into a person's heart like frost through a window, turning them cruel, violent, insatiable. One moment, they are human. The next, they are lost. To the Algonquin peoples, the Wendigo was not only a beast of the woods, it was a reflection of human weakness, a symbol of what happens when survival turns to selfishness, when man chooses hunger for flesh over community, when the thin line between man and monster shatters. But here's the chilling part. These were not just fireside stories. For centuries, people have claimed to see the Wendigo, to hear it stalking the woods in winter, and worse, to feel it gnawing at their minds when food ran out, when snow buried the world in silence, and when hunger was all that remained. Legends say the Wendigo is never satisfied. It is the embodiment of hunger itself, a hunger that grows with every bite, a hunger that consumes everything, even the soul. The Cree described it as a creature with a heart made of ice, its body impossibly thin, flesh clinging to bone as though it had already starved to death. Some say its lips were chewed away by its own ravenous teeth, leaving a mouth that stretched too wide, filled with jagged yellow fangs. Others say it was covered in ash-gray skin with long arms that scraped the ground and claws sharp enough to slice through bark, bone, or frozen flesh, always taller than any man, sometimes described as 15 feet high, its body swollen and stretched by the curse, grotesque and deformed by the weight of its eternal craving. But there are darker versions still. In some tales, the Wendigo is not a visible beast at all. It is a presence, a whisper in the trees, a shadow moving just outside the firelight. It crawls into your mind, stirring thoughts you never wanted, urging you toward hunger, cruelty, and madness. Once it takes root in your heart, the stories say you cannot resist for long. You will feel your body change. Your bones ache. Your eyes sink deep into their sockets, glowing like embers. And soon, you will crave only one thing: the flesh of your own kind. The Algonquin believed that Wendigos grew larger each time they ate human flesh, their bodies stretching grotesquely with every feast. And yet, no matter how much they devoured, they remained skeletal, forever starving, forever empty. It was a punishment without end, an eternal reminder of the taboo broken. In some traditions, shamans described the Wendigo as a sickness of the spirit. They claimed it could leap from one person to another, like frost spreading across glass. A Wendigo did not always look monstrous. Sometimes it walked among people in human form, its hunger hidden, until the snow fell heavy and the nights grew long. This idea terrified people most of all, that your neighbor, your hunting partner, even your closest family, might already be claimed. That when you closed your eyes by the fire, someone sitting next to you was staring at you hungrily, already imagining how your bones might crack, how your flesh might taste. Over the centuries, the Wendigo's image evolved. Colonial settlers merged it with their own fears of the wilderness. Writers painted it as a demon of the north, a beast that lurked where the snow never melted. In modern horror, it appears as a gaunt, antlered monster, its skull-like face crowned with the remains of a stag. That image, though not part of original indigenous tradition, still captures the essence of the Wendigo, the unnatural fusion of man and beast, the nightmare of hunger given form. What never changes is the core of the legend. The Wendigo is not just a monster outside in the woods. It is a warning of the monster that might awaken inside us all when desperation takes hold. Though centuries have passed since the first tales, the Wendigo has not vanished. In the lonely places of Canada's wilderness, people still claim to hear it, to see it, to feel it watching. Hunters in northern Ontario tell of nights when the forest falls silent, when even the owls and wolves refuse to cry out. Some report a foul stench drifting on the wind like rotting meat buried in snow. Others describe glowing eyes moving between the trees, keeping pace with them as they walk. One trapper swore he heard footsteps trailing him, crunching in the snow just a few paces behind. But when he turned, nothing. Only his own tracks stretching back into the darkness. In Quebec, near Lac Saint-Jean, villagers once spoke of a tall figure glimpsed at the edge of town, always in winter, always alone. Some said it looked like a man, others swore its head was crowned with twisted antlers, its body stretched unnaturally thin. The children called it l'homme squelette, the skeleton man. Livestock would go missing, dogs would refuse to leave their homes, and families would whisper prayers against the Wendigo. In the 20th century, loggers in Manitoba described strange encounters. One crew abandoned an entire camp after hearing shrieks at night echoing across the frozen river valley. They claimed something enormous had circled their tents, leaving behind prints too large for any man but too narrow for bear or moose. Even today, modern hikers in Algonquin and the Rockies report strange experiences. Cold spots in the middle of the woods, a sudden oppressive silence, or the feeling of being watched. Some speak of shapes moving just beyond the reach of a flashlight, others of hearing their name whispered on the wind, though no one was there. Perhaps most unsettling are the accounts from remote First Nations communities. In times of hardship, when supplies run low, when the winter bites hardest, elders still warn of the Wendigo. They speak of it as more than myth, a force that awakens when hunger and isolation grow too strong. One Cree elder told a journalist, "The Wendigo is not gone. It waits for us to forget the old ways. It comes when we are weak, when we are greedy, when we turn on each other. That is when it finds us." Whether these are visions born of fear, hallucinations of the starving, or glimpses of something older than time, no one can say. But the legend refuses to die. It persists in the minds of those who live closest to the wilderness. And every winter, when the snow buries the trails and the dark lasts too long, someone claims to see the Wendigo once more. The Wendigo is more than just a monster in the woods. It is a mirror, a reflection of what we fear most within ourselves. For the First Nations, it was a warning against greed, a reminder that in the harsh winters, survival depended on community, on sharing, on protecting one another. To hoard food, to betray your kin, to consume what was forbidden, that was to invite the Wendigo. And once invited, it never leaves. But the Wendigo also symbolizes hunger without end, not only for flesh, but for power, for wealth, for more than what one needs. It is the endless appetite of humanity itself, an appetite that devours forests, rivers, mountains, and sometimes each other. That is why the legend has never faded, because we recognize it, because we carry it. Every winter, when the world freezes over and the nights stretch long and silent, we feel that same fear, the fear of emptiness, of hunger, of what desperation can make us do. Even today, when we tell the story of Swift Runner or of hunters who vanished into the woods, we feel the Wendigo's shadow. Maybe it is only myth, maybe it is only madness, but myths survive for a reason. And madness too has its truths. Some anthropologists say the Wendigo is just a cultural metaphor, a tale to keep people safe, but others are not so sure. They point to the sightings, the accounts, the eerie silence in the trees. They remind us that some legends are older than history, and that the wilderness of Canada is still vast enough, still dark enough to hide anything. So what do we believe? Is the Wendigo a monster of the flesh, a curse that twists men into beasts, a spirit that whispers in our hunger? Or is it something even more terrifying, a reflection of ourselves, of appetites we cannot control, of the cold hunger that gnaws at the edges of civilization? One thing is certain, the Wendigo endures. It waits in the snow, in the silence between trees, in the shadows of our own desires. And if you ever find yourself alone in the Canadian wilderness, your fire burning low, your stomach empty, and a whisper calling your name from the dark, do not answer, do not listen, because once you hear it, once you feel it inside you, you may already belong to the Wendigo. Tell me, what do you believe? Is the Wendigo a tale to frighten children, or a predator that still walks the frozen woods? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and join me next time as we step further into the darkness, further into the mystery, further beyond the veil.